I'm so very enthused about speaking about the future, but somehow the future gets lost when the default notion of the world's perspective is that life is a game. You see, the future gets lost when you think life is a game. I totally disagree with the fact that life is a game. Let me explain why. As human beings, what we have is a clear opportunity to make decisions from three different parts of our bodies. The first one is the logical decision, the decision that education has always told us to take. Remember when you told your dad you wanted to be a doctor and your dad said, no. I mean, you told your dad you want to be an actor and your dad said, no, you mean doctor, not actor. That's the logical decision about preparing for the future. The second part of our body that we can make decisions from is the primal desire of more. Always constantly needing more stuff, more recognition. And both of these parts of our bodies get us to think that life is a game. But if we start making decisions with our hearts, our curiosity and our intuition, we start to see that the rules don't actually apply like they do to a game. And the question we need to be asking ourselves is this, are you running away from the darkness or are you running towards the light? You see, from the outside, it's exactly the same. The person is energized, focused, moving towards something, but one of them is fueled by anxiousness and one of them is fueled by excitement. Now, the default button that's happened around the world is that we all default to anxiousness for some reason. We think it's a normal state to be anxious. And so when I talk about the future and when you're anxious about your life in the future, it falls on deaf ears. And if you are running away from the darkness, these are the certain things that you'll be suffering from. One, you'll always be running out of time. There's never enough time throughout the day, and that I hear everywhere. Also, you're always constantly worried about safety of yourself, your family, and everything around you. Thirdly, you're always continuously trying to escape the rat race. Everybody's got this 5-year plan to move to the coast, but nobody actually gets there. And fourth, it's always about my physical survival, not the team. I don't have time for collaboration. I've got to keep safe when I'm in a state of anxiousness. But if we had to shift the way we make decisions, we have to utilize a different part of our body, we start moving towards something rather than running away from something. And this is moving towards the light. The context of our lives start to change. All of a sudden, time becomes my friend. I'm mostly feeling safe and calm in my world. I've built a life I don't actually need to escape from. There was a great meme on Instagram the other day that said, Mondays don't suck, your life does. And in this state, the only thing we can do is look after the tribe. We become secondary just naturally when we start making decisions from different places. And somehow, the world has created this notion that ambition, this thing that we all strive to be, is the need for perfection with a massive dose of impatience. Anybody sitting here with their leg tapping? That's massive loads of impatience, waiting for perfection, which we never actually get to. This anxious energy, this need for more, has created something called short-termism. This short-termism has created incredible havoc in the environment. A total disengaged workforce. According to Gallup, it's like 16% of us are actually engaged at work. A total inability to innovate when we're anxious, and don't think for a second that you're being creative when you're anxious. It's exactly the opposite, actually. Never mind the customer, it's always going to be about profit and needing more. The customer always comes second to a CEO that's anxious about the business. And definitely increasing income inequality through the process of greed, wanting for more. Now, I travel around the world and I see this pretty much in every country that I visit. And I think it's sad because I think there's a new opportunity for us to wake up to. In this anxiousness, we've created a society that's addicted to many things. Sugar, porn, weed, you name it, alcohol. Anybody posted on Facebook recently on a Wednesday morning at 11:22, oh, where is wine o'clock coming? That's anxiousness, begging for a little bit of freedom. And I call this in my second book, the horny teenage boy syndrome. And unfortunately, Justin Bieber represents that. In fact, I'm a fan of his. But the world is stuck in this constant need for more. When? Now. What about tomorrow? Forget about that. We need it now. And this impatience is killing us. This horny teenage boy syndrome has created havoc for us. 150 years ago, we had something called slavery. I mean, how disgusting is that? In fact, it was so normal, the slaves thought it was normal. This horny teenage boy syndrome created an environment that 100 years ago, no woman voted, God forbid. Even the woman thought that was normal. 75 years ago, we had something called colonialism, which is a swear word in my mind. 50 years ago, we had segregation, which was normal, based on this immature, masculine, horny teenage boy syndrome of the need for more. 30 years ago, we had child labor that was happening around the world, based on greed and making profits the priority. 24 years ago, we had apartheid in our own country, based on the need for power. But everything started to change in 1989. Somehow, the environment we live in, the universe that we're in, started to shift. New seeds started to get planted. And in 1989, many amazing things happened. The first one, the Berlin Wall came down. And this was the beginning of the capitalism freedom beating communism and closed-mindedness. Also, what happened in 1989 was the Tiananmen Square incident happened, where China started to open up its political system, moving from a totally communist to somehow a socialist capitalist environment. Also, unfortunately, in 1989, the Exxon Valdez oil spill happened. This was the first time that we as humanity started asking questions about our impact on the environment. This is where the green movement really got its impetus. And also in 1989, the World Wide Web was invented, giving the opportunity for us to start sharing information, not just for the elite, but to everybody. Two of them that I don't have in here, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama went on their first date in 1989. Means nothing, but I thought it was a fun fact. Also, Nelson Mandela's negotiation for his release began in 1989. You can see that so many things started opening up in 1989. But the most important thing that happened in 1989 was that for the first time ever, the Western world's population, on an average, topped 40. For the first time ever in the history of humanity, the Americas, the Western world of Europe and Japan topped the age of 40 for the first time. And we know that when we top 40, we go from me to we. And this began the process of us moving away from a hierarchical model to become more of a collaborative model. And really, ultimately what it is the rise of the feminine consciousness. We start to see this start to seep through every little part of our society. I mean, EQ, the understanding of emotional quotient, was only past the 2000s for us to understand that there was a space for our heart to start making decisions and not just down here or up here. And if you look at the world today, there's never been more powerful woman around. Michelle Obama's book now becoming a sensational #1 hit all over the world, plus the fact that the most influential people are not just women, but women of color. And we're starting to see this really start to grow around the world. That gives me a lot of joy. And I call this building businesses in a cathedral thinking sense. You see, if you built a cathedral in the 1600s, it would take 3 to 5 generations of your family to finish building it. Elegant, deliberate, conscious in the way we actually start moving into the future. And this always is based on making decisions from the curious place, the intuition that we have. And Steve Jobs said it best. He said, follow your heart and your intuition. Somehow already know what you truly want to become. And the second question I want to ask you is this, is in order for us to move into this future, we have to start letting go of our past. And here's the question, is are we living a life based on a set of memories from our past, or are we living a life based on the vision of our future? When we are dragging our past with us and not letting go of it because it justifies who we are, we can never grow into the potential that we are. A great quote by a guy called Alan Watts. He says this, he says, "The knowledgeable man has to learn something new every day, but the wise man has to unlearn something new every day." And it's in this unlearning that gives us this idea, in order for us to prepare for a more conscious world, for a more aware world, what we have to do is understand that wisdom becomes a huge part of it. And if you want to know what wisdom is, it's this. It's memories with no triggers. When I think of my past, I'm so calm. That's really wisdom. And in order for us to prepare for this world in the future, what we need is a healthy dose of wisdom and a healthy dose of curiosity. This actually becomes an anti-disruption serum. Any business, any person can never be disrupted when they are wise and curious. And when you have wisdom and curiosity, you start to understand that ambition is elegant excellence with a healthy dose of patience, a much more conscious way about going and building businesses. So I don't think life is a game. I think life is a series of games. And when you understand this, when you're wise and curious about this, you then become patient and don't need to win every game. And when you start understanding the elegance that you can approach life with, you start getting invited to play more games. And that becomes winning at the games of life. Thank you for your attention.